Hi there, you're watching Break It Up and I'm Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan. On the show today, we'll be discussing Pakistan's antics that are starting to look rather bizarre and comical even. So much so that even their own citizens are now trolling them. The internet can't stop laughing and netizens are asking today, did Pakistan mistake the battlefield for Heathrow Airport? From fleeing generals to failed strategies, memes have flooded the internet. And this is not Indians criticizing Pakistan, but Pakistanis themselves. The hashtag Munir out is a top trend on social media, and their army general is missing in action. The Indus Water Treaty is suspended, and Pakistanis are trolling their own government for not being able to provide water to its citizens. Has Pakistan now become a laughing stock in front of their own citizens? To talk about that, joining us at the moment is Tilak Devasher, who's an author and a former member of the National Security Advisory Board. Many thanks, Mr. Devasher, for joining us here at Times Now. And to begin with, how do you assess the current tensions between India and Pakistan? Do you believe that Pakistan is apprehensive that India might retaliate any moment? And is that leading to all of this pressure that's building up, at least on social media?
Thank you for having me on your show. Yes, I think Pakistan, in fact, the crazy press conference with that minister had at I think 2 a.m. in the morning, saying that India is going to attack within 24 hours or 36 hours. And he needs to be asked what happened. They are very worried. They're very concerned. And to use a stronger word, they're running scared. Because they know that the kind of terrorist attack that was carried out and the manner in which it was carried out and what the Prime Minister said in response in Bihar. So they know that India is going to react very, very strongly. But when and where, obviously India is going to pick a place of its own choosing. So yes, people in Pakistan, including the armed forces and the political class, is very worried, very tense and bracing for impact.
Right. The larger question is that after the Pahalgam terror attack, there are questions mounting over Pakistan's army chief himself. General Asim Munir's whereabouts are unknown. There's a hashtag Munir out that's trending on social media, and there's rising scrutiny over his recent Kashmir remarks. Is his silence and absence a sign of something that he's trying to hide, in your view?
You're right that he's been missing. So yesterday, I think, or day before, the ISPR put out as if he was touring in POK. Put out some visuals of his. But yesterday again, a lot of people put out tweets that this was from 2022. This was not a current one. So he's actually either sitting in a bunker or he's fled to London or something like that. It is not very healthy where the army chief himself, there are doubts whether he continues to be in the country to lead his forces or whether he has skipped, leaving the country to its own, just deserted. So it is not good for the morale. And if he is there, he needs to show himself. He needs to come out and talk to the people, come out on air and talk to the people, because it's very disconcerting and very demoralizing. And this is what is happening in Pakistan, that people are not even sure of their leadership, especially of the military leadership, at a time when they feel that they are being that Indian attack is imminent, and this man goes AWOL.
Absolutely. And in fact, we're talking about, a situation of the army chief, and it's even more ridiculous if you talk about what's happened in terms of its spy chief, because Lieutenant General Mohammad Asim Malik has now been appointed as the National Security Advisor amidst these heightened tensions with India following the Pahalgam attack. Now, what does this really signal in your view? Is this a further militarization of Pakistan's security apparatus, and could it indicate a more aggressive posturing or covert operations against India in the near future?
No, I don't think so. I think he doesn't have to be in NSA to do those covert action, because as DG ISI, he's totally competent to do what they have been doing all along. But it certainly shows the greater military control of all aspects of national security. You see, his earlier, Moeed Yusuf, who was a think tanker, was Imran Khan's national security advisor, and he brought some amount of gravitas to the post. I think the army was very uncomfortable with Moeed Yusuf because they wanted one of their own men to be there, sitting right in the Prime Minister's office and handling matters of strategy and policy. So they've got this post back. And the reason that they've done it now is that in case there are negotiations to be held, in case there's backroom, back channel talks to be held, then they would rather have a military person there, one whom the army chief trusts, than to have a civilian whom could well be a loose cannon. Right. That's the reason why Asim Malik has been appointed as the NSA, while continuing to be the DGISF.
Right. There's also a startling video that has emerged from Lucky Marwat in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where a Pakistan police officer can be seen openly abusing and defying army personnel. There's a public breakdown within the state's own machinery. In context of what you just said, and while the date of the video is not clear, even if it is from before the time of the Pahalgam terror strike, is this not a major embarrassment for Pakistan Army, given the kind of open fissures that appear to be there as far as the police and the army are concerned?
It is certainly the very, not only embarrassing, I think it's dangerous for national security. But this is not the first time. Earlier also, the police, I forget the name of the district, had gone on strike against the army. They had said the army should clear out from here, let us handle the security situation, to empower us, and we'll take care of the TTP. We don't want the army. And what they were implying was that it is the army who is playing favorites with these terrorists, supporting some groups and trying to fight against the other groups. And the persons who were the biggest casualties were the police. So the police literally went on a dharna in this district. Similarly, over here, the policeman told the police, please vacate this area. You don't have to be there. You go to the front and fight at the border with Indians. Leave this area to us. So there is tension between the army and the police at a very critical juncture.
Absolutely. And, given the fact that India has put the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, we're already seeing protests that are taking place on ground in various parts of Pakistan, including Sindh and other regions. Do you think that this is really a sign of what India wanted to achieve? Because at the end of the day, you're seeing a situation where locals are threatening to block railways, power supply to Thar coal fields, and also, of course, perhaps just a sign of the beginning of what's going to come for Pakistan?
Yes. You see, in the case with Sindh, they were protesting for some time now, the last 2 months, for a proposal in Punjab to build 6 more canals from the Indus to irrigate the Cholistan desert, which the army has a vested interest in because they dish out land parcels to retired soldiers, and under the garb of the Green Pakistan Initiative. So Sindh has been up in arms for the last 2 months, and protests have been happening in all small towns, large towns against this. But water is immediately going to affect Punjab itself. Because even though the treaty is held only in abeyance, the fact that India no longer has to share data on the flows, incoming flows. You see, this is a very critical period for agriculture.
Right.
Because the early Kharif crop will be sowed in May. The watering of the cotton crop, the maturing cotton crop, is also going to take place at this time. So if the farmers are not sure of how much water is coming and when, they could stand to lose their crops. So they are going to be very agitated that, why has this? And this all goes down to show that the Pakistan army, when they carried out this operation, they did not anticipate that India would react in this manner, in this non-kinetic manner. They thought, taking examples from the surgical strikes after Uri and the Balakot airstrike, that India will probably react militarily, it will get contained. But the fact that this is a masterstroke by India to react non-kinetically and to hold the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. Because, water is, as it is, Pakistan is a water-stressed country. They have badly managed their water resources. So if there's any disruption in water supplies, it's going to lead to a huge disruption in agriculture and in food security.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, it's not just the army chief. There are reports coming in that the former foreign minister Bilawal Bhutto has also left Pakistan. And there's a lot of speculation about high-profile political families distancing themselves from the current regime. In light of this, are we witnessing a quiet political exit or a deepening rift within Pakistan's power elite amidst this growing public unrest and institutional overreach?
You see, the PPP has been playing a very smart game. At one level, they had agreed to these canals. But then Bilawal Bhutto got into the act and talked about leaving the government and all those kinds of things. So they're, playing both sides. But personal security and personal safety, I think they're all concerned that in case there is going to be massive strikes by India, then all of them had better be out. So you'll find a lot of generals are reported to have sent their families abroad even within 24 or 48 hours after the Pahalgam incident. Right. Similarly, now politicians too are gradually taking out their families, and some of them are going out themselves. Just shows how frightened and scared the leadership of Pakistan is.
Right. Right. Also, sir, I must ask you that the Indian government, after this attack, has reconstituted the National Security Advisory Board, of which you have been a member in the past. There are 14 new members in the board, including experts from various fields. How do you assess the board's potential effectiveness in addressing cross-border terrorism, especially in light of what we've seen in recent days?
All the members of the board are domain experts. Whichever are the government's priorities. So that kind of tasking is done. And members of the board are all domain experts who will be able to contribute immensely to providing options, to providing policy papers, to providing recommendations to the National Security Council Secretariat, and which will then, process it and take it forward. So, and this is the tenure of the previous NSAB had completed on 31st of March, and therefore it has been reconstituted because a new advisory board was required since so many people had left on 31st of March. So they're all domain experts and would be able to provide some very good advice and on whatever the government's tasking is going to be.
Right. My last question to you, sir. There's been a conversation today between the defense minister as well as his US counterpart, and during which we're told that the Indian defense minister, of course, accused Pakistan of training and supporting terrorists, a position that we had, and the US strongly condemned the attack, reportedly calling Pakistan a rogue state that funds terrorism, and also express solidarity with India after the Pahalgam attack. How do you see this? Because, at the end of the day, many questions, of course, on the one hand of whether military action is on the horizon. On the other hand, there's also been a statement from the Secretary of State of the United States, which has, asked for talks and, calming down of tensions, so on and so forth. How are you seeing this development?
No, I think it's very important. I think India, apart from the United States, has also briefed the ambassadors and missions and various other countries also. Because when India is good, as and when India retaliates militarily, they will have to take the international opinion along with them and to be able to explain to them why is this being done. And in that scheme of things, what the US Secretary of State and the Defense Secretary had to say becomes very important. Because all of them realize that India is the victim of terrorism, and you cannot equate Pakistan, which is the perpetrator of terrorism, and India, which is the victim. It's all very well calling for peace and negotiations, but the fact of the matter is that if you are the victim, you cannot be equated with the perpetrator. So I think these are important statements which will all add to the body of international opinion, which is in India's favor as sympathetic and has expressed concern over the terrorist incidents.
Mr. Tilak Devasher, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.